Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance. Does he stand by all his statements?
The Honourable Bill English.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, in the context in which they were made, and I think the member probably knows that.
Supplementary question. It's always good to have it confirmed.
Grant Robertson.
How does he reconcile his statement that the debt problem with the dairy industry is confined to a small group of farmers with dairy consultant Peter Fraser's view that a quarter of dairy farmers are vulnerable to going under?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I suppose in both cases, as the member is himself, we're making forecasts about what might or might not happen. I think there's a bit of a tendency at the moment to generalise that there are wide-ranging and severe debt problems in the dairy industry. I think it's yet to be tested. We've yet to see the extent to which farmers can adjust and the extent to which banks continue to support farmers, which might be more than people expect because of their long-term confidence in the industry.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
Does he consider dairy consultant Peter Fraser's view that a quarter of dairy farmers are vulnerable to going under to be unrealistic?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it would depend on what he means. I mean, Peter, well, when he says vulnerable to going under, he's not saying they're actually going under, and even if he said that they would certainly go under, we've yet to see whether that's what actually happens. So we can have a contest of forecasts of doom here, and I'm sure there's worse ones than his. We have confidence that a resilient sector and a supportive banking industry, they can see their way through some pretty tough times.
Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
How does he reconcile his statement about the impact of the loss of 40% of land value for farmers, quote, "it looks like farmers will get through," with the statement of Paul Glass of Devon Funds Management, quote, "unless we have a strong recovery in dairy prices, I think it is heading towards a bit of a car crash"?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I don't think there's much doubt there's going to be a decline in dairy land prices, but we need to keep in mind that's against a background of very considerable increases in land prices over the last 10 years or so. So all of these things are possible, but in our view, the dairy farmers are pretty resilient. The banks will be supportive. There will certainly be some casualties. I don't think there's any doubt that farmers with high debt levels and high cost structures are going to find themselves under some real pressure.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
Will he make good on his statement that he has the flexibility to use fiscal policy to stimulate the economy and play his part now that the Reserve Bank Governor has lowered interest rates?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Reserve Bank Governor, as he outlined today, sees the economy growing 2.5% to 3% for the next 2 to 3 years, which is not the circumstances in which government would try to fine-tune fiscal policy to support the economy. There'll be a budget on the 26th of May, and it will outline the government's plans, and the member will have the opportunity to comment on them.